So I recently got into cassettes. Like, very into cassettes. I spent a month listening to music exclusively on cassette, diving into the history of how this outdated technology changed the world and is still crucial today. And I made a whole series about it. Throughout this series, there were a variety of tape players, some practical, some with specific uses, and some that are so rare, they're technically illegal to own. So today I'm walking you through 7 rare and unique cassette players that I used for the Mixtape series. Things are gonna get a little weird. Let's dive in. The first Sony Walkman was released in 1979, but over a decade earlier, in 1968, Sony released the TC50, a sort of proto-Walkman. This is a cassette player and recorder. It's very easy to use. It has simple controls with big chunky buttons on it, a giant record button on top. Look at this thing. Oh man, like the design, look at this. Deta-ROMs, anybody? Let's get a close-up of this on the top camera. Oh my god, it looks so good! And if you're thinking this is some sort of like spaceship tape player, you'd be right. These gained popularity because starting with Apollo 7, all the astronauts who went up to the moon were kitted with one. The idea here is that the astronauts would be able to easily record their observations. They don't have to grab a pen, they've got these big gloves on so they can just hit record and start talking. Of course, if you're going to send astronauts up to space with a cassette recorder, there's no need for the cassette to be blank. So each astronaut had their own personalized mixtape. This story was told to me by Zach Taylor in episode 3 of the Mixtape series. He talks specifically about the Apollo 11 mission, focusing not only on Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, but also the third man on the mission, the one who didn't land on the moon, Michael Collins. After we filmed this story with Zach and Simon for the Mixtape series and seeing Zach's TC50, I knew I had to get one myself. It's just so cool. Look at this giant hunk of metal, man. It feels solid in your hand. This design, like, it's gorgeous. We used this for some close-up shots as well as the big tape loop at the end, but I'll tell you more about that in a minute. The second player on the list is from the company We Are Rewind. Now this is the main player I used for my month of diving into cassettes, and I still use it now. It's an interesting device because it has modern features like a rechargeable battery and Bluetooth so you can do wireless headphones. But the design is strikingly similar to the Sony TC50. It's almost the same size, it's also metal, but of course this one is orange. Get a side-by-side there of these two. Oh my gosh! They both look so good, man. This is not sponsored with them, I just love this player. It's one of the best you can get, and it also has a mic in feature here. So I use this in the Mixtape series to run a line from my computer into it and record directly to blank tape so I could make my own mixtapes. You see, I had started with a limited quantity of cassettes, but I realized I could just make my own mixtapes, and it was not only a whole lot easier, it was way more fun. Of course, as the month went on and I collected more and more stories about the history of cassettes, I began to doodle on this. So check out some of these drawings here. Top camera. This is Apollo 11, tying in with that story. This is a computer. That's from episode 4 there. Digging the Greats, because I couldn't write the letters small enough. If we follow the headphone line all the way around here, that sends us all the way back to these headphones back here. We've got a Deka tape here. This is a boombox, headphones, right? We got a heart. This is a mic representing Bing Crosby. This is a scroll here. If you remember episode 3, I was in a play that involved a scroll. We've got a radio tower here. There's actually many instances of radio towers throughout the series. And then I went ahead and put my own labels here on the top just to make it easier for myself. Now, I had so much fun with this that I made 3 more just like it, and I'm giving them away. I'll be doing a special Patreon-only live stream on Saturday, November 29th, where I'll be playing music, hanging out, and giving lots of stuff away, including 3 custom players just like this that I've drawn on. To enter, all you need to do is sign up for the Digging the Greats Patreon on any tier, free included. Sign up at patreon.com/diggingthegreats. Number 3 on the list is technically illegal to own. It's this one right here, the Library of Congress Telex C1. This is a tape player originally from the 1960s, though it was in circulation for decades after. The idea was for people who were hard of hearing or blind or just needed to slow down a book on tape. You could take this machine and slow the tape down to very slow speeds, but still retain the fidelity and understand what was being said. And now I say it's illegal to own because it says very clearly, Library of Congress, National Library of Congress, for the blind and handicapped, and then on the back here, property of US government. You were supposed to return them, and for a long time there was a ban on reselling these. But now that they're out of circulation, I think it's fine. I think. I first ran across this tape player when I visited Simon Adler during the Mixtape series. You can see this thing in use in the first episode after we cut and repaired a Deka tape. This is also the tape player we used for listening to the mixtape from my own personal history, and then I thought this thing was so cool, I had to have one of my own. While the C1 was originally made for the Library of Congress, it found a new life among tape heads because of its unique ability to slow things down. And here's the sad part. I have used this, and I used it in the score because this thing gets pretty crazy. However, in plugging it in right now, I was prepared to give you a demo. It's got an onboard speaker. It's also got some awesome outputs here as well as input. It's a great machine. And just now, as I go to plug it in, it doesn't work. Come on! It's kicked the bucket. Oh, come on! Come on! It's alive! Okay, now that we're working, let me get a different tape. Mikey McD. Let's see what he sounds like. Let's see if this will clear YouTube. Okay. So, check it out. If I'm at normal speed, let's listen to Michael McDonald. Here we go. This should be normal speed on the tape. Here we go. But if I want, in the middle of it, I can just switch to the other side of the tape, but it's still going to play the same direction, which means, in this case, it'll be playing backwards on the B side of the tape. Check it out. Now, I can also slow it down. Check it out. Incredible. We can go at extreme high speeds like this. Anywhere in between. Or I can slow it way down. Go in between here. That's crazy! Anyway, you get it. You can do crazy things with this. If it works, and in this case, I'm so happy that it works. Please don't arrest me for having this thing. Great. If you're making ambient music, this thing is a dream. In fact, this machine inspired Simon Adler's own Windstar project, which I did a whole other video about. It's a very vaporware vibe to it. I love it. I want to take a second and thank the sponsor of this video, Magic Spoon. You remember being a kid and putting on Saturday morning cartoons and eating cereal? But now that you're grown up, your cereal probably should too. Magic Spoon cereal has 4 to 5 grams of net carbs per serving, more protein and less sugar. I actually recently did a sponsor with Magic Spoon and they sent me a whole box of cereal. But this is a new one. You know why? Because I took it back to my family and it was gone so quick. We also got some protein treat bars here. Throw these in a bag. This is perfect. You know, they didn't send me this blueberry muffin one before, so I'm gonna do this. Yup. Great. We got a maze on the back. This is perfect. Use my code DIGGINGTHEGREATS or click the link in the description to try Magic Spoon cereal or treats today and get $5 off. Start here. Well, grab your spoon. You're supposed to lead it with the spoon. The magic spoon. Nah. You can also find Magic Spoon on Amazon or in your nearest grocery store. And Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee online. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. We got a word search on this one. They really thought this through. All right. So click the link in the description to go to magicspoon.com/diggingthegreats or scan the QR code on the screen for $5 off. Now, for our fourth tape player today. In the second episode of the Mixtape series, we talked about how Bing Crosby and an audio engineer named Jack Mullen changed everything by integrating this new tape technology that they'd gotten from the Germans post-World War II. This allowed Bing to pre-record the show, but it gradually began to change his show because it was pre-recorded, and then proceeded to basically change all of media and how it's made. There's even a direct tie now to artificial intelligence. It's kind of crazy. Now, that actual machine is called a magnetophone, and I couldn't get one. Partially because they're gigantic and expensive, and also because I think most of them are just in museums now. So instead, I settled for a different reel-to-reel recorder that we'd substitute for the visual. It's this one behind me right here. This particular model is a TIAC A1500 from the late 60s. So yeah, about 2 decades past the Bing Crosby story we were telling. However, I fell in love with this thing. This particular unit does work, though it's in a little bit of rough shape. Specifically, the line in and out on the side here. These jacks are a little bit messed up. I did manage to record directly to the tape and get some audio off of it as well, and for the score of the series, there's a few cues that I ran through this thing to get a good tape sound. Now, for the tape itself, I got some new reels from a company called Recording the Masters. Again, that's not sponsored. But I used a lot of their tapes, not only on this reel-to-reel, but for blank cassettes as well. And actually, their tape is what my mixtape is being manufactured on. We got a lot of really cool shots with this machine in the Mixtape series, and I've decided to hang on to it because it's just so cool. For now, it's gonna live on this shelf behind me here, but I'll slowly restore it because this thing is awesome. Now we gotta talk about the 4-track. This was used multiple times throughout the Mixtape series. This particular unit is a Tascam Portastudio 414 Mark I from the early 90s. 414, 414, I don't know, because there's also the mic that's the 414. I don't know what it's supposed to be called. This unit is in perfect working condition. It's a really fantastic machine. This was a tremendously popular 4-track recorder. I had one growing up. Mixtape DJs had this or ones like this, and I'll give you a bonus behind the scenes thing in a second. Basically, how this works is you take like a stereo cassette tape, which has 2 channels, left and right. But then if you record on both sides of the tape simultaneously, that gives you 4 tracks. And you can mix these tracks down to have even more tracks, though your work is essentially locked after you do that. So when I decided to make my own mixtape near the end of this series, I originally wanted to make the entire thing exclusively on this machine right here. However, I quickly realized how difficult this would be. Especially when you're used to modern recording and things like Ableton, it would, for me, be a subpar result and really just something I would do just for the sake of doing it. However, much of the mixtape score and mixtape itself was run through this thing. I'll give you 2 specific moments. During episode 1, there's a section where I'm explaining how tapes that wouldn't sell would get sold off for cheap and then eventually get recycled. I made that music first, and then I recorded it into this 4-track and used the pitch control knob right here to adjust and slow down the tempo. I was trying to communicate like this disappointment because the tapes aren't selling, so this gradually decreases in tempo and in pitch. What you're hearing is me watching along and slowing it down with this pitch control knob right here. Another time it was used was when I asked Simon to record some saxophone for me. We were packing up everything downstairs at his house, and he went upstairs and recorded directly into his own 4-track Tascam directly to cassette. That's this cassette right here. Get a shot of that. Get a shot of that. Top cam. Commodore 64 and Simon's sax. If you've seen episode 4, you know we wirelessly transmitted a Commodore 64 program onto cassette via FM transmitter. That is also here on this tape. But we then took this Andrew Reyes and I, and we sampled it as part of the closing song for episode 1. By the way, if you haven't heard, I did make my own mixtape, original production from me, several guest features. I'm very proud of this thing. It's releasing on November 29th on cassette and digital USB cassette. You can pre-order a copy at diggingthegreats.com. Next up, number 6 on the list. This one is really unique. It's called a Lofiatron. In order to understand this one, you need to understand what a mellotron is. The most famous example of a mellotron is the beginning of Strawberry Fields Forever by the Beatles. It's essentially a keyboard instrument, but every time you play a key, it plays this little tape loop sample in the back. It vaguely sounds kind of like a flute, but very cool vibe. We used a mellotron sound all through the score, but this is a Lofiatron from a company called Fattronics. This is a custom-made 3D printed bass. It's a tape player on top, and then you have knobs and buttons right here. Each knob correlates to a speed, so when you press the button, it plays this tape at that speed. But of course, you can put these knobs all at different speeds, and then play each of these buttons just like a mellotron. Now this gets really cool if you put a specific tape in, especially if it's a tape loop, which we're going to talk more about in a second. But check this out. It basically turns a tape into its own keyboard instrument. So the one all the way on the right here, I've got the knob all the way up. This is the fastest it can go. Now, next to that, let's go a little slower. Even a little slower. It's like you're combining the pitch control from this, but also with the crazy flexibility of this, and putting it in one thing that you can play. So you can fine-tune these to individual notes. Let's see. Let me grab another. Okay, gong loop. Here we go. You can do some crazy stuff with this. I use this several times throughout the score in order to give a cool, spacey vibe, and particularly in the 3rd episode with the Apollo 11 story. I took the main theme and I recorded it onto tape, and then gradually as the story unfolded, I triggered each of these keys, so you're hearing the same theme, but slower and slower, matching what's happening on screen. This thing is really cool, and it basically turns tapes into their own instrument. Speaking of turning tapes into instruments, let's talk about the last player here. And it's not actually quite a player, it's more of a concept. Tape loops. There are different kinds of tape loops, and I got very into these. So I just showed you this one, right, which was the string sample. And if you look closely on the tape here, you can see that the tape is running across right here. So all it's doing is going here, down through the tape. If it were clear, we'd be able to see it, right? But it's just a loop that big, so you never rewind it, you never do anything other than play it forward. And it's a few seconds, it's like 4 or 5 seconds on this particular sample. Now it's the same one on the second one I just played, which was this gong loop. You can see directly through there, you can see where the tape loops, right? And tape loops are really cool because it's a good starting point to have a little sample, and then you can use a tape player like one of the ones that I'm showing you here, and then run that through various effects like reverb or delay, and then you can do really interesting things with it. This is another tape loop here. Let me play this one and see what it sounds like. There's the loop, right? course, I could run it through this thing, slow it way down. That'd be crazy. I could do individual controls on this thing. It could go wild. But what if you wanted a tape loop that was longer? I got this one online. This company is Lifted Loopworks. Check this thing out. I'm going to go ahead and open this up. Look at this tape loop. Now, I think it's like 13 seconds of tape in here. But what you can do is put this thing in here, and I'm on a 4-track, right? So I'm going to go, this is track 1, track 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to turn these down. Let's hit play. You're hearing track 1. Let me bring in track 2. How about track 3? And 4. Now you can basically play chords, but just with all the different tones that are on this tape loop. The song I'm Not in Love by 10cc uses gigantic tape loops, not unlike this. This is a miniature version that I'm doing right now. What they did is, this is in the 70s. They recorded these giant tape loops of themselves singing Oz. And then on this giant mixer, they just have all the notes available to them. And then they're playing along and the melody's happening and they're going up and down on the faders like this. So using tape loops, and tape loops like this one, you can get really, really cool effects. Okay, let me show you one other tape loop that I got. Look at all the wheels in there, and also, it jiggles on purpose. Look at this black wheel in here. It's not tied down, but it is looped around the thing. So it will move intentionally. Let's check this out. This is an imperfect loop. Made even more imperfect. Let me hold this up so you can see this. Anyway, you can get very cool effects with stuff like this. But what if you wanted to go even longer? Like, much longer? Well, then you'd want to do an open tape loop. The idea here is that you've opened the cassette itself, and the tape runs around something else, and then back into the cassette and player again. You can not only have much longer loops, it can get real weird and spacey since the speed of the tape is going to be a little inconsistent. And you run that through some heavy reverb or delay, you can get some really cool stuff. Now, I made 3 open tape loops for episode 3. The first one was to demonstrate the concept I was trying to communicate, which is that tape holds more than just music, they hold intention. This loop went around several push pins into a circle, almost like a heart formation. Here is the tape itself. As you can see, I have sawed off the top of the tape here, and then I'm threading the tape around through here, but then also on the insides as opposed to the outsides, and then it just comes all the way through like this, and that's the end of the loop. Next, I made one for the tape that a girl had given me when I was 13 to visualize why I had held on to it for so long. This one was more straightforward, just going out and back again, but of course the tape had to run out of the side instead of the top. Alright, so here is one of these same tapes. It's just that instead of cutting off this, I am now just cutting off this side, and then as you can see, the tape is running this way, across here, and then around the inside of that right there. Both of these cassettes are still enclosed. I had to open these in order to do this and saw these pieces and then rethread the tape throughout. But you can see that they're both, still solid cassettes. It's just that this tape is running outside of it. And then for the Apollo 11 story, the finale here, I made a tape loop that connected Apollo 11 on the dark side of the moon all the way back to Earth, showing how Michael Collins relied on his tape player to keep him tethered to the rest of humanity. And this one is the craziest tape loop that I have made, because if you can see this, This is a regular untouched half of a cassette shell, and then this I have sawn off right here. So I took this apart and then sawed this whole part off clean, just like that. So the top here looks like, you know, regular cassette, and then past that it's open, so that on both sides we can get clear and open tape coming out here. These were extremely fun to make, but if you do this yourself, you should know they can be very finicky. It requires sawing a cassette open, running the length of the tape around just right, keeping it all from getting tangled, and then getting the tension right can be difficult. But man, this was really fun. You know I love going down rabbit holes, and this cassette series was no different. So if you haven't checked out the Mixtape series, go watch it. The full thing is available to watch for free on YouTube. I'll link to it at the end of this as well as below. It's the biggest and best thing I've ever made. If you have liked anything I have ever made, you're gonna love it. If you want to pre-order my mixtape, it's dropping at the end of the month on cassette and digital USB. And if you want to win one of these 3 custom cassette players, sign up for free at patreon.com/diggingthegreats.